We've just found the ultimate comparison video. This is from Retro Comparisons on YouTube, and it's a compilation of every game that released on both Nintendo and Sega platforms, such as Aladdin on SNES and Genesis, Lion King on NES and Master System, and hundreds more. There are even comparisons of handheld titles, arcade games, and compilation re-releases. Cross-gen games are also featured, so now you can see how much better Rayman 2 looks on Dreamcast instead of Nintendo 64. The creator even went as far as to include unreleased ports, like the Sega CD version of Urban Strike and the Super NES version of Prime. So there are a lot of comparisons here, with exactly 1,100 games, making the length of the video a whopping 9 hours and 18 minutes. That is only 1 minute longer than the Lord of the Rings trilogy, theatrical cut. So if you have 9.5 hours to kill, you could freshen yourself up on some video game history with this gargantuan comparison video, instead of watching Viggo Mortensen break his toe for the millionth time. It brings us back to a more interesting era when games had wildly varied versions between multiple consoles to the point where they were completely different. Like the Game Boy Color version of Grand Theft Auto 2 was wholly unique compared to its Dreamcast counterpart, which makes sense for the hardware they're on, but even some Genesis and Super NES games are different. Bonkers, for example, was a 2D platformer on SNES, whereas on Genesis it was a collection of mini-games. Even when the games appear to be similar on both platforms, there are some little differences that make a huge impact, such as Aladdin getting a sword in the Genesis version, or the infamous lack of gore in Mortal Kombat on SNES. We don't see differences like these between platforms anymore, since they look almost identical by comparison. Even if they get Switch ports, the core game is still the same, no matter how many compromises were made. One of the standout comparisons in this video to me is Quake on the Sega Saturn and Nintendo 64. Just seeing how much better the lighting and HUD is on the N64 version seems like the most optimal way to experience the game on console back in the 90s. Then there's the Sonic Adventure on GameCube and Dreamcast, if only to show how much worse the DX version on GameCube looks compared to the original. Man, they really botched this re-release, didn't they? And in general, the Nintendo 64 and Dreamcast comparisons greatly interest me because I always forget that the Dreamcast is the first of the 6th generation of consoles like PS2 and GameCube. But it got a lot of ports from the Nintendo 64, so games just inevitably looked cleaner on that system. I've even heard that Dreamcast is still the best way to play Rayman 2, which I haven't played yet, but I want to. So does anyone want to lend me their Dreamcast? Pretty please? So if you want to check out Retro Comparisons' ultimate Nintendo vs. Sega video, be sure to click the link in the description or on the top left of this video. And be sure to subscribe to GameXplain for more updates like this one. Until next time, bye bye!